Okay, we'll talk now about Eric Owen Moss, a North American architect who will intrigue us, not to say more, from the west coast of the United States. So Eric Owen Moss, born in 1943, and I think he was born on the 25th of July in 1943 in Los Angeles. He practices architecture with his eponymous named Los Angeles-based firm founded in 1973. He was born in Los Angeles. He received a Bachelor of Arts from the University of California in 1965. His Masters of Architecture from the University of California, Berkeley College of Environmental Design in 1968. And the second Masters of Architecture or Master of Architecture from Harvard University Graduate School of Design in 1972. Moss has taught at Southern California Institute of Architecture, SCI-Arc, since 1974 and served as director of SCI-Arc from 2002 to 2015, so for 13 years. He has held chairs at Yale and Harvard universities and appointments at Columbia University, the University of Applied Arts in Vienna, and the Royal Danish Academy of Fine Arts in Copenhagen. So a very accomplished educator. Here he is. And Wolf Prix described him as being very good with words. He also said, Wolf Prix, that Tom Main was very good with drawings and Eric Owen Moss with words, but I think both were actually good and are good, both with words and drawings. Drawings. He has very complex drawings, intricate and hybrid, and they are informed by various sources, not in the last by literature. Literature is informing his architecture. He's a well-read man, and he loves to transgress frontiers between various disciplines. And his architecture does the same thing. It transgresses frontiers. His architecture is an architecture that sometimes even shocks. It's not really a deconstructivist, but a certain level of fragmentation is present in most of his works. But it's different from at least those 7 deconstructivists who show their work at the Museum of Modern Art in New York in the early 90s. Now, this drawing, this particular drawing, was seen by someone working in his office, a young Mexican architect, and he wrote to me asking, where did I find this picture? And because he showed it to Eric Owen Moss, and Eric said, yeah, it might be mine. He wasn't very sure, but he didn't know where it came from. And well, in the end, we kind of deciphered the mystery. I discovered the source, from the web. Because, this is a drawing. It's what you see through a window, and you see on the right a curtain. And it's an imaginative drawing. He is unafraid to take risks. Eric Owen Moss is not afraid to take risks, and he builds accordingly. Last year, I offered him the immaterial, the other Pritzker Prize, because I think he deserves it. But for some reason, the more and more conventional jury of the Pritzker Prize, passed by him. So we just look now at graphic works by Eric Owen Moss. The art of drawing is also accompanying the art of building. So the built work and the drawn work, they complement each other, they serve each other, they are good relatives, so to speak. He's playful. He's a playful architect. He understands that you cannot create unless you are a homo ludens. And this attitude vis-a-vis architecture is continues to be present at SciArc, the school where he was director for a long time, because one of the maybe one of the mottos of the school is to hell with regulations, we are going for the unknown. Triplex apartments, Playa del Rey, California, USA, 1976. Colors, forms, shapes, California, a luminous state where the sun feels at home. An early work by Eric Owen Moss. Morgenstern Warehouse, Los Angeles, 1979. Does it look like a warehouse? Not really. I wish the pictures were larger, but they are not, and I apologize. That's what I found. Here is the model. So why shouldn't a warehouse also be ludic? Why shouldn't it have colors? Why shouldn't it have, numbers written as they are written right here? Why shouldn't the pipes contribute to the aesthetics of the building or buildings? I like this picture. I wish it was bigger, with a church seen behind the warehouse. A house, 1982. But these actually, when I look at the plans, they look more like, are they apartments here or is just a warehouse? No, warehouse. But maybe there are apartments because looking at the plan, they seem to be apartments. Or half of the building seems to be with apartments and the other half maybe with a warehouse function. This is 1982, a whimsical house. How is it called? 708. Interesting, this exit in the back of the house, and you can tell that the children love it. Well, there are elements of here of a pop architecture, a pop architecture, a sunny pop architecture, Californian architecture, where the ludic element is present in obvious forms. Playfulness and even danger, perhaps. Another house, the Petal House, Los Angeles, 1984. Here is the Petal House. At the bottom, buildings without glory, but it's okay. You can cohabit, various architectural entities, and why not have also what I call buildings without glory? It's okay. At the top of the Petal House, a ludic, small cosmic pool. The National Boulevard, Culver City. He moved to Culver City, and that's where he actually transformed Culver City. Now it's a cultural destination, especially for architects, because like Andrea Palladio in Vicenza, in Italy, Eric Almos was able to literally transform Culver City into a destination for cultural tourism, because he built there, quite a number of buildings, and all of them very interesting, engaging. So it's possible. It's a possible strategy for architects to move to a place, without much to offer, so to speak, except the opportunity to build significantly, and that's what he did there. And he built several buildings there, not a few actually, that are quite interesting. Now here we see elements of a stage design, touched by postmodernism. This is a central housing office. This is not in Culver City. Now maybe his architecture could be described as sometimes avoiding too much the so-called seriousness of serious architecture. In other words, that the ludic element is maybe at times too present. But I think for a change, that is good. Now, the Lindblad Tower in Culver City, 1989. Well, only part of the building is a tower, but look at those, blocked windows. And this is some kind of a, Californian medievalism. It almost sounds oxymoronic, Californian medievalism. Paramount Laundry, Culver City, 1989. The office is here. Gary Group, Culver City, 1990. It's clear Culver City is his city, just as Vicenza is Palladio's city. There are elements here of superfluity. Voltaire said that what is superfluous is actually necessary. And I think to an extent it is true. I don't think everything in architecture has to be objectively justifiable or objectively legitimate. So the superfluous could, under certain circumstances, be quite maybe even necessary. Otherwise, we risk of becoming too morose in the name of a mimicked, often seriousness. Yes, there is stage design here, there is. Another house, 1993. Now, this is an architecture probably that searches for the same goal that Kop Himmelblau or Paul Prix search for. That is complexity. It's not a defeated complexity. It's a complexity which is searched for and assumed and accepted as such, as complexity. Someone like Eric Owen Moss and someone like Paul Prix, although Paul Prix loves the Romanian sculptor Brâncuș, Brâncuș actually wanted the very opposite, to move beyond complexity towards simplicity. But an architect like Eric Owen Moss or Paul Prix search for complexity, for as much tension, even contradiction, for as many, conflictual elements. It is an architecture of conflict. All kinds of pairs of opposites find room in the architecture of Eric Owen Moss. The Box, Culver City, California, 1994. An unusual box. Slanted box. Open box. Tormented box. Fragmented box. I'm thinking a little bit of the South Korean architect Moon Hoon. There are some similarities a little bit between Moon Hoon and Eric Owen Moss. Quite an interesting South Korean architect, Moon Hoon. Now, the gasometer D1, Vienna, Austria, but it was not built. From 1995, this is the project. It was not built. But in that work, there were contributions like from Jean Nouvel or Paul Prix. I guess the one proposed by Eric Owen Moss was not accepted, perhaps. Although it does look interesting. The visceralization of architecture within one gasometer. There were four, and all four were transformed inside, mainly by four different architects. Maybe in the work of the seven deconstructivists, at least at that time, at the early 90s, there wasn't so much roundness or even centrality like it is here. Yes, it is a tormented centrality, but it's still a centrality. But in this case also, the centrality was suggested and it came from the gasometer itself, the existing container, cylindrical as it is. We see here references to Dante Alighieri. Inferno, Purgatorio, Paradiso. As I said, the architecture of Eric Owen Moss finds a lot of inspiration in literature. The Semi Tower in Los Angeles, 1996. These buildings are not built in stone. They are, you know, in the long run of things, perhaps fragile, vulnerable. But they propose a different kind of architecture, an architecture of hybridity, of conflict, of tension, of complexity, of puzzlement, of paradox. Sparsity, Culver City again. Maybe one day the histories of art and architecture will talk about Culver City in as much as they talk about Vicenza. Another one, Culver City, we already saw. No, it's not the same building. Also, I think Eric Owen Moss searches for an architecture of narration, a narrative architecture, informed not only by literature, but by life itself. A lived life is actually a narration. Often we do not narrate anything through our buildings. There is no story that we externalize through our buildings. But Eric Owen Moss attempts to tell a story through his buildings. It's almost like saying anything goes. But everything is brought into some kind of a togetherness, conflictual as it is. Dancing Bleachers, Columbus, Ohio, 1998. Eric almost doesn't seem to have inhibitions. Umbrella, Culver City, again, 1999. Quite a nice umbrella. Maybe it doesn't protect one from rain, but I remember again what Walter Gropius said, that the mind works best when it is like an umbrella, open. Or the mind is at its best just as when an umbrella is at its best, when it is open. Unfortunately, too many minds are not open. So it rains on us with indifference, cynicism, mercantilism, banality, and so on. Let's not be too bitter when we contemplate the work of Eric Moss. There is playfulness here. Yes, there is almost a vicious playfulness where the superfluous or superfluousness asserts itself in intriguing ways and in provocative ways and in unstoppable ways. I mean, look at this interior here. Stills, Culver City 2001. Most of his buildings are engaging, interesting, provocative. Yes, in terms of tectonics, one could say that they are not respecting the canons. They are not maybe built forever. They are capricious, but capriciousness is part of art too. And I would include architecture in the field of art as well. But there are many things to discover here. It's his buildings are like Pandora boxes, all of them. You open them, and then you are faced with surprising discoveries. Maybe it's not all of them pleasant, but it's okay. There is coherence, though, then there is unity, but there is also multiplicity and distortion and disjunctions. Mariinsky Theater, St. Petersburg, this was just a project from 2001. He didn't win, it was not built. Lots of glass, perhaps too much glass, considering that it was for Russia, St. Petersburg, but for any country, so much glass is to be questioned. Competition entry. Now the Beehive, again in Culver City, 2001. I'm sure if you pass by it, you stop to take a look. To take a look and wonder. Another work in Los Angeles, this time 2001. Yes, his architecture is close to stage design, sometimes more obviously than others, other times. Anything goes, and any inspiration, any source of excitement, any influence is accommodated. Come in, please. We'll put you to work. The Smithsonian Institution, the patent office building in Washington, D.C., but no build, no pictures. Now, this one in China, no pictures, but, well, some pictures of the model. Eric Moss welcomes the fantastic. And I remember what Fyodor Dostoevsky said, that what we call reality is not actually reality. True reality contains within what we call the fantastic. So the fantastic, or what is fantastic, should not be banished from our definition of reality. Republic Square in Kazakhstan, unbuilt. And who said that he cannot draw? Of course he can. Although, as I said, Volprix thought that Tom Main was the master of drawing and Eric Owen Moss the master of wording. But he drew a lot, and I think he drew well. Hayden, 3555 Hayden, Culver City. He truly built a lot of buildings in Culver City. And we will still see a few more. If not now, when? In Vienna, Austria, 2009. It was like a conference, a symposium, massive assault. And he gave a talk called If Not Now, When? In Vienna in 2009. Now, this well-known building by him, a tower in Culver City, 2010, constructivism for our time, for the 21st century. Some advertising taking place there. I don't know exactly how it functions now, but it was meant to be some kind of a advertising tower that digitally displayed images. I hope I have a view from the night, a night view. Yeah, an interesting tower. sculptural, engaging, even threatening a little bit. But danger is always part of what matters, I would say. We cannot truly eliminate danger, and maybe it's not good to completely eliminate it. Another tower, Cactus Tower, 2010. So who would have expected in a place, dominated by parking lots and parking structures? Here was an architect who dedicated his life to transforming that ocean of parking lots and parking structures into as I said, a destination for cultural tourism, for, an assemblage of provocative structures, which architecturally means something. You might not agree with everything he did and does, but but the alternative would have been deadly, just banality and banality and banality. And this man fought against that banality, and to an extent he succeeded. Eric Moss in Culver City. Now, the Austrian Pavilion in Venice in Italy, 2010. Interesting that he represented Austria and not the United States. I guess Austria loved him. China again. No pictures, Barcelona. I wonder if these will be built, these towers. They're rather interesting. Eric Moss, acting as a visionary architect. The attempt to bring the fantastic, or bring back in the fantastic, or to underline the fantastic instead of obscuring and banishing it, I think is a positive attempt. Life becomes richer, more provocative, more engaging. We might live shorter, but more intensely. After all, that saying, I don't know if it belonged to, I think I read it, it belonged to Pascal, but I'm not sure. That, what matters is to bring more life to your years instead of bringing more years to your life. So again, to intensify life, more life to your years instead of more years to your life. Because it doesn't matter if you live 100 years in total dullness and inactivity and lack of creativity and banality. Who cares that there were 100 years? But Vincent van Gogh in, 37 years, he probably lived several lives. Pterodactyl, Culver City, 2014, built. This is not a model, it's a built work, just as you see it, and it's close to the umbrella building, also by him. The pictures are a little bit too light, I have the feeling, but I didn't take them. Well, some people might say this is an architecture of complication. Yes, there is complication. But who could say that life is not complicated? Some people might say, sorry, but if life is complicated, why does architecture have to be complicated? Well, there are different sensibilities. Maybe some people think that architecture should be an escape from reality, while others might think that architecture should express reality just as it is, complex, visceral, turbulent, with moments of serenity as well. Luis Barragan thought that a good architecture should offer us the comfort of serenity, but there are others who think otherwise. I wonder what one feels working in this building or, visiting it, passing by or going through it. Would it leave you indifferent? Would it irritate you? Would it bring you joy or fear? It's possible you are not going to be indifferent. Although maybe the indifferent one will remain indifferent. Moscow unbuilt, another project that was not built with touches of medievalism, but this time in Moscow, not in California. It does arrive often at the unexpected. But it's just a project. It was not built. Oscar Wilde said that moderation is fatal and only excess succeeds. Well, it seems that Eric Moss seems to agree. But this was done before the war in Ukraine started. I wonder if you would propose something similar now for Moscow. Probably not. Vespertine, Culver City, 2017, built. It's not a very tall tower, but I think it is interesting. You don't quite realize its scale unless you see, measurable entities around it. Now, this is one of his latest creations. The wrapper, written in that way, with a W between parentheses and then rapper, in Los Angeles. It was just completed. Some people protested, other people found it interesting and engaging. So structure becomes also ornamental, and ornament becomes structure. Maybe an erotical ornament, but perhaps an ornament deserved by our time. It was finalized. You can find more recent pictures about it on the web. A wrapper. Here it is during the construction. A lot of steel, yes, not the most sustainable building in the world. But when it started, when the construction started, the world was not yet so preoccupied by sustainability as it is now. Some form of excess, some form of even immorality, perhaps, uh, is difficult to avoid in the field of artistic innovation. Uh, Maybe art is indeed beyond good and evil. I'm not trying to excuse the excesses of such an architecture, and it doesn't need the excuses. It stands for by itself on the shoulders of its creator, and I personally welcome it. Yes, it is excessive. Yes, it has elements of viciousness, but it has also elements of truth, because life is not linear. Life is not placid. It's not just rational. It's not a simple addition or subtraction. Is complex, is unexpected, is irrational, is sometimes tormenting. So the wrapper, I think, tells the story of our time in, I would say, rather adequate terms. Maybe it places a mirror in front of us that we do not like to look at, because we see ourselves with our angst, with our deviant elements, with our paradoxes and our not knowing what to do. One could contemplate this building and get lost, perhaps, but getting lost is one way, perhaps, of getting out of the labyrinth. You have first to enter the labyrinth in order to gain something you should look for, but without entering the labyrinth is not really possible. So, the architecture of Eric Moss, I think, are as a whole is as a whole an invitation to assume the labyrinth and to assume the unknown, and to explore facets of reality that often we neglect, some of them uncomfortable. Why should structure be just so-called rational and rectangular, and why not envision a form of wrapping up a building in less Cartesian ways? Why not? Is life Cartesian? I doubt it. Thank you, and let's wish him happy birthday. If indeed his birthday was today or is today, the 25th of July, 2023.